When I was about 9 or 10 years old, because it would have happened in the early summer in between fourth and fifth grade for me, or fifth and sixth grade for me, we went on a boating trip with two other families. And this is a really big deal for us. So I should tell you about our boat to begin with. So when I was a kid, before my dad died, I was 11 when he died. We had a boat, and I'm not even sure quite precisely when we got it. I might have been in second grade or third grade, but that was like a really big deal. He had saved for quite a long time. He had a good job at that time. He was working as a tax attorney. He had gone to law school. He had a CPA. And so, we were sort of climbing into, solidly middle class and even upper middle class territory. And so he could afford to buy a boat. And, it wasn't a huge thing. It was an 18-foot tri-hull, and we used it for water skiing and going out on Lake Nagawicca and sometimes Pewaukee Lake. And we did a lot of river trips as well. We did camping with it. We used it a lot for fishing. Sometimes we'd go to other lakes as well, like Lake Nabobin. There's upper and lower. I remember being out there. And, we're fortunate in that where we grew up, we had lots and lots of bodies of water. And so boating with that particular boat, we called it the Green Arrow because it was a green tri-hull. That became a major part of our life. I think the way it is for many people who have boats. Once you've got one, you've got to find, ways to use it. And there's a lot of upkeep that you got to do as well. So there's all sorts of stories to tell about that, including the story that I'll tell sometime about how I caught a white bass that almost broke the Wisconsin state record in that same boat on Lake Nagawicca with my dad. So in any case, there were a couple other families from my elementary school. There were the Gryphans, and I think it was Dick and Gloria, maybe. She was a teacher. She actually taught at our elementary school, and he was I think a high school gym teacher and football coach. He used to shove himself into this tiny little Chevette because it was the 1970s and everyone was trying to save, gas. So he crammed his 6'4" frame into that tiny little subcompact car. And they were pretty cool people, and they had a kid named Guy, and he was in my class. And then there were the Belmonts, and I remember there was Rich, he was in my class, and then it might have been Mike, and I don't remember the parents' names, but in any case, they had boats. So the Gryphans had a boat, more of what we nowadays recognize as a bass boat, and the Belmonts had a boat as well. So my mom and dad knew these people, and we'd talk, a lot. And so one day they hatched the idea, why not go for a trip on the Mississippi? And, the Mississippi is a major river here in the United States. There's all sorts of, fables about it and cool stuff. And we'd done some river trips before where we would go camping, on the Fox River. And I'm trying to remember where else we went in Wisconsin. And what you do basically is you put your boat in at one place, and then, somebody brings the car and the trailer down to the place where you're going to go, and you boat down, and you stop and, camp out, cook out, fish, do all the swim, all the sort of things that you want to do. And very often we would go on these trips with other people. I'm not sure quite how my parents, knew or connected with or vetted these people, but, we always had a good time. I'd often bring books with me. I remember, actually, on the river trip to the Mississippi, that's where I first read through the Carl Edward Wagner Kane set of novellas that were called Death Angel's Shadow. So I remember that in particular. So in any case, the Mississippi is not a river that runs close to where we were living on the border of Delafield and Wales. So this entailed quite a long trip, and we went out to Crosse, which is a small city, university town in western Wisconsin. Right across the river, right across the Mississippi is Minnesota. So I'm assuming that we left our cars and trucks and we had a station wagon at the time, and boat trailers there. And I remember one really cool incident before we actually got underway. And that was, there's massive barges that go up and down the Mississippi. So, we must have drove out there like on probably a weekend or something. It was the early summer. And we stayed, everybody, in a motel. And I remember, I think there was a pool. And, me and these other boys, we were all friends, and we all hung out and had a good time together. And my sister, I think, was kind of, she was the only girl on the trip, so she was kind of the odd woman out, you could say. But she got along with Rich's brother, who was like her age as well. And in any case, so we stayed there, got up the next morning, beautiful morning in June, and had breakfast at some local restaurant. And then we're out by the Mississippi, and here comes a big old barge, and it's got in massive letters along its side, Gloria G. And so Gloria Gryphon, right? We're like, take a look at that, and I think everybody took it as kind of an auspicious sign, and it was pretty good. And then we got our boats in the water, and we had all sorts of food along and all sorts of things packed up, including tents. And we got underway, and we went south, following the river, which flows south. And each day, if I remember right, I think we may have actually stayed on a couple locations multiple nights. But generally what we do is we'd motor around for a while in this little, not armada, obviously, a little convoy, right? I was just going to say caravan, but caravan would be for land stuff. There's a little convoy of 3, pretty small boats. I think the Belmonts boat was, about the same size as ours. You could probably fit maybe 6 or 7 people in it tops. And, and these were boats that didn't have like cabins or anything either. Everything's exposed to the elements basically, unless you put the top on it, which is basically just like, what you have on a convertible. And so if it was going to rain or something, if it was going to rain hard, you're kind of screwed, or if it's really cold, there's no like heater or anything in the boat. And then we had the other boat. And I remember for some reason, I think maybe we were trying to save gas, we had the other smaller boat tied behind our boat. We were towing it with the water skiing like rope or whatever we call that sort of thing. And, we had all sorts of like inner tubes and air mattresses along as well. And so we tooled, maybe a couple hours, I don't know, maybe longer. And then we pulled in by a sandbar. And there were all these massive sandbars, some of which exist for years and years, some of which disappear, some of which shift around. The Mississippi, like most major rivers, is constantly changing its face. Sometimes it'll like change its course significantly. This has happened in the past. And so, we camped out and we set up the tents, and then, they had like a grill along, and they were cooking various things. I think they also had a lot of beer and liquor along, quite frankly, as well. And I know we had quite a bit of soda and water too. And so we would like camp out there, and then we would just do stuff, like we had frisbees, we played tag, we went fishing, swimming, we found all sorts of clams that we dug up, and then our parents didn't want to go through the work of, actually like harvesting them, so they told us to put them back because they had enough of food along. They didn't want things that were high maintenance or high work. And we had a great time. I mean, there were some problems. My sister got sunburned. I got sunburned a bit, but then it would fade after a while. The Belmonts were darker, so they didn't have so much trouble with that. The guy was pretty pale too, so he got sunburned. And I just remember it being, a very fun trip, and we never really wanted for anything. There were a few times when the weather got bad, but for the most part, it was this beautiful sky. It wasn't too hot. There were some times where you'd run into like a lot of mosquitoes and start getting bitten up quite a bit. But, overall it wasn't too bad. And some of the sand dunes that we were, well, not sand dunes, some of the sandbars, the islands that we stayed on, must have been pretty permanent, because some of them had like, woods on them, and there would be fireflies at night in some places. And yeah, it was a great time. And I think if I remember right, the adults took the boats and like went to nearby towns to get more supplies from time to time. But there was always some adult out there with us, watching us. And we had to be careful, because it was a river with a significant current. So we were all lectured on, like, don't go too far out. There's some, decent-sized fish in these water. Keep an eye out for what's going on. Watch out for other boats that are going down the river. And we did this for about a week. And it was a really nice trip. It was a good time with my mom and dad. I had no idea that we weren't going to have my dad with us for that much longer. And I'm really glad that, one of the things that I'll say about him, he worked very hard, a lot of long hours, and but he spent a lot of time with us kids, and a lot of that time was involving the boat. And we did things as a family, and we did things with other families as well. So it was a really excellent trip. I'm not even sure how far down we went. I think we went pretty close to where Wisconsin ends and Iowa begins. We're in the river that entire time, and beautiful skies at night. There were a few rainstorms here and there, but for the most part it was, fairly clear skies. You could see so many stars out there, and there was this constant sound of the waves and the river and the current and all of that. So that was a memory. I haven't thought about that for quite a while in the sort of depth that I'm going into here, but it's kind of nice to bring it up, because there were so many other trips that we took, so many other camping trips, sometimes with a boat, sometimes not, but that was one that really stuck in my mind. And then, we got done and drove back. I guess you could call that a caravan, right? I think there was a truck involved. I know we had a station wagon, driving these boats back to the area that we were from. I think, if I remember right, the Belmonts were from maybe Delafield or Genesee Depot, and I think the Gryphans were from Genesee Depot as well. We lived on the border of Delafield and Wales, which none of this will mean anything to you unless you know local geography in western Waukesha County in Wisconsin. But suffice it to say, we went out there as a group. I don't remember there being any real like fights or squabbles or anything like that. And we just really enjoyed ourselves, and it was a great start to that summer. We did a lot of other things that summer as well. And I'm not even sure whether it was the summer after I'd finished fifth grade, which would have been kind of significant, because if it was, that would have been the very last summer that we had my dad with us. The summer after that, the summer of 6th to 7th grade, he was dying in the hospital, including in Rochester, Minnesota. And I would have been transitioning as well away from the public school system to go to University Lake School. So I would have been leaving my friends behind, going into a totally new school where basically you were either smart or rich, and there wasn't a lot of overlap between the two. If it was 4th grade to 5th grade, then we were all at Wales Elementary and we were becoming the big kids at Wales Elementary because it only went up to 5th grade. But I'm not even sure which it was. In any case, I thought I'd share that interesting little story with you about the trip down a portion of the Mississippi in the middle of a summer, which would have been either the summer of '79 or the summer of 1980.